Number 10, we have the Dybuks. A Dybuk is a disembodied evil spirit that, due to its sins when it was alive, it wanders aimlessly until it finds a body of a living person. And when it finds a body, that's when it possesses the new body's soul, and it creates a separate personality inside that person and causes a whole lot of mental illness. Now, people with nervous disorders were taken to a rabbi who believed he could actually cast out the Dybuk through an exorcism. Number 9 brings us Asmodeus. According to Zoroastrian and Jewish legend, Asmodeus is the prince of demons, and he appears in the book of Tobit, one of the ancient Jewish religious books, where he torments a woman named Sarah. Now let's just hold on for a minute, guys. I'm just thinking, why is it that when it comes to horror movies and scary stories, there's always a Sarah getting tormented or killed? Should I be worried though? My wife is named Sarah. Okay, Asmodeus. If you're watching this, back up. I'm warning you. Don't mess with me. As the legend goes, Sarah was married to 7 men in succession, and Asmodeus slays each husband on their wedding night. Sarah's 8th husband, Tobias, ends up outsmarting Asmodeus on his wedding night, and he enjoyed a long marriage with her. Moving on to number 8, we have Golem. The myth of the golem originates in the idea that human beings might be able to form living creatures from clay, just like Adam was formed from clay by God. The most famous golem is the one made by Jewish mystic and philosopher Rabbi Judah Leo, who was the Maharal of Prague, who inscribed a clay man with the word emet, meaning truth, and then he spoke the divine name and brought him to life. The golem protected the Jewish community from persecution, but ended up becoming too difficult to control. It became very dangerous, so the rabbi just decided to erase the first letter of the word emet, leaving the word met, which means dead. Number 7 brings us Leviathan. Now, Leviathan is this massive sea creature, and the Leviathan is referenced throughout the Hebrew Bible, and according to tradition, it was created by God at the beginning of time. Now, Leviathan has a counterpart, which is a land creature, and that creature is known as Behemoth. And in some versions of the legend, Leviathan is the female mate of Behemoth. Leviathan is often an embodiment of chaos, and it threatens to eat those who are damned. There's also a Jewish legend that says that in the Messianic era, the Leviathan will be killed and the righteous people will end up eating its flesh. Number 6 brings us to the fiery flying serpent. The fiery flying serpent is mentioned by the prophet Isaiah in the Bible, and the term translated as fiery servant, seraph, appears in the book of Isaiah to signify the seraphim, and the singular of seraphim is seraph. Isaiah also sees them in a vision, each of them having 6 wings, and they flew in the presence of God. But the term fiery serpent in other contexts is also mentioned. In the book of Numbers, the Israelites, they start to complain about not having enough food and water, so God sends fiery serpents to attack them. But the Israelites, they end up begging for forgiveness, so God tells Moses to put a copper serpent figure on top of a rod, and anyone that looks on the rod, they will recover. So we see that the full scope of the fiery serpent's abilities is shrouded in mystery, making it all the more scary. Halfway in at number 5, we have Mazakin. The Mazakin are invisible demons that pester individuals. Mazakin, they are lower level demons though, and they're actually types of demons that you can encounter in your daily life. They don't necessarily do much harm because they rarely possess people, but they tend to only attack if they are angry or they're just generally unhappy. Rather than try to get rid of them, they say the best thing to do is just learn to live with them. Either way, if it makes itself visible, yeah, that's definitely going to send some chills up your spine. The being at number 4 is the Nephilim. According to one interpretation of the book of Genesis chapter 6 in the Hebrew Bible, in the early generations of humanity, there were some divine beings that became very attracted to human women, that they came down and they ended up mating with them. And then the offspring that they produced are known as the Nephilim. These semi-divine giants, they roamed the earth for generations and they tormented people. But what happened to them after that? Well, nobody knows for sure. The being at number 3 is the Shamir. The Shamir is a supernatural being with power to cut through stone, iron, and diamond. It's mentioned throughout the Talmud, and the Shamir was created right before the first Shabbat or Sabbath, just as God finished creation. It's said that Moses used it to engrave gemstones in the high priest's breastplate, and King Solomon also commissioned a search to find one for the use in the construction of the temple. And the Shamir is said to have lost its powers, though, at the first temple's destruction. The scary being at number 2 is Lilith. In Jewish lore, Lilith is a female demonic figure and was actually the first woman ever created before Eve. She was feared because she was believed to slay women in childbirth and steal their babies. She was also known for her uncontrollable sexuality. She would force men to sleep with her, and she did this just so that she can get pregnant and give birth to produce more demonic offsprings. The creature we're going to end off at number 1 is the Estries. Estries are a type of vampiric being who also take on a female form. Mentioned in Sefer Hasidim, Estries preyed on Jewish citizens and had to drink blood to stay alive. Estries could also fly if their hair was unbound, but binding their hair would stop them from flying. And these beings are very hard to get rid of. It is believed that burying them isn't enough to get rid of them. No, you needed to pack its mouth with dirt and then bury it, or you could also decapitate it or burn it.
All right, up at number 10, we have the Behemoth. In Job, one of the Bible's oldest books, the Behemoth is described as a gigantic, powerful creature that can only be tamed by God. His tail is so large that it moves like a cedar tree. This description has led some creationists to claim that the Behemoth was in fact a biblical era dinosaur. However, the creature is mentioned as having a navel or belly button, which would rule out the fact that it was an egg-hatched lizard. In Jewish tradition, the Behemoth is a primal earth monster, a symbol of chaos. Less imaginative scholars have also suggested that the Behemoth is simply a poetic description of a real giant creature like a hippopotamus. All right, this next one is referred to as the first beast. Now, the first beast of the book of Revelation is a monster with 7 heads and 10 horns that rises from the ocean. It is also said to have the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion, and the general appearance of a leopard. Wow. Theologians and biblical scholars have interpreted this beast as symbolizing everything from the papacy in Rome to the 1st century Roman Emperor Nero. And of course, to follow the first beast, we have the second beast. This beast, which unsurprisingly follows the first beast in the book of Revelation, rises up out of the earth. It has 2 horns and speaks like a dragon. Personally, I've never heard a dragon speak, but I guess I could imagine it must be scary. Now, this beast's job is to perform false miracles that encourage people to worship the first beast. It also allows the first beast to kill anyone who doesn't worship it. And it seems like these 2 beasts form some kind of like a tag team or something. Now, interpretations of the second beast are also varied. It's been described as a symbol for everything from the Prophet Muhammad to the modern United States. Do you believe in unicorns? Well, unicorns are mentioned 9 times in the King James Bible, a medieval translation that remains popular to this day. Unfortunately, linguists have since discovered that the Hebrew word re'em, translated as unicorn here, actually refers to the oryx, a distant ancestor of the modern cow, which went extinct in the 17th century. Which is actually a shame because unicorns are far more interesting and mysterious than a slightly larger than usual cow. In fact, a whole bunch of mythical creatures in the King James Bible are believed to be additions by medieval translators who were more interested in being extremely poetic with their descriptions than in making sure the creatures they were describing actually existed. Moving on to Abaddon's locusts. Alright, so these creatures are ruled by Abaddon, an angel of the bottomless pit whose name literally means destroyer. Because they appear in the book of Revelation, they're of course not satisfied with being just normal locusts. Instead, they resemble war horses, have the stinging tails of scorpions, the faces of men, long hair like a woman, and they wear crowns of gold and armored breastplates. Their scorpions' tails are used to sting their victims, an experience that is apparently so painful that men shall seek death and shall not find it. Oh my gosh, that sounds tormenting. Now, is anyone else cringing at the idea of coming face to face with one of these? I am. And up at the halfway in today's video at number 5, we have the 200 million horsemen. This epic army also appears in the visions of Revelation, although they're not to be confused with the far more famous 4 horsemen, or the guys who symbolize death, war, famine, and pestilence. But these riders aren't to be messed with either. Their horses have the heads of lions, tails like serpents, and they spit smoke, fire, and brimstone out of their mouths. Eventually, they're said to be responsible for the deaths of a third of all mankind. And of course, what would 200 million horsemen be without their leaders? 4 fallen angels. And since we're all pretty familiar with another very famous fallen angel, aka Satan, one can only imagine the amount of evil and destruction that this deadly army is involved in. Up next, we have Daniel's beasts. Like Revelation, the book of Daniel is largely made up of visions which are meant to symbolize real-world events. In one of these visions, Daniel sees no less than 4 monsters emerge from the sea. One is a lion with eagle's wings, which is then transformed into a human-like creature and has its wings plucked off. Ouch. Another is a bear-like creature who is told to gorge himself on flesh. Yikes. And a third looks like a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. The final monster has iron teeth and 10 horns with which it destroys the whole earth. And believe it or not, the vision actually gets weirder from there. These beasts are often said to represent 4 different nations that existed in Daniel's day. If so, each of these nations sound like they would have been pretty terrifying. Up at number 3, we have the dragon. Another beast from Revelation, the great dragon is described as having 7 heads and 10 horns. Clearly, the multi-headed and multi-horned beasts are very popular in Revelation. The beast also has a tail capable of sweeping a third of the stars out of the sky. The text later identifies this dragon as Satan himself, who fights against God's angels and is cast into hell. The King James Bible refers to dragons elsewhere, but like its mention of unicorns, these are believed to be mistranslated. Most modern versions of the Bible identify them more so as jackals, hyenas, or snakes. Up next, we have the Nephilim. Much confusion surrounds the Nephilim, or fallen ones, who pop up in Genesis and are described only as the offspring of sons of God and daughters of men. Some have interpreted this to mean the offspring of angels and human women. Another less interesting explanation is that the passage refers to the mixing of 2 human tribes, godly people descended from the good guy Seth and the somewhat less godly descendants of bad guy Cain. If that idea seems too dull for you, don't worry, there's also a strong internet community that believes that the Nephilim were in fact extraterrestrials. And all the way up at number 1, it's no surprise we have the Leviathan. The Leviathan, mentioned in the book of Job, is a massive sea monster who's impervious to human weapons, breathes fire, and emits smoke from his nostrils. The Leviathan is probably related to another ancient Near Eastern monster called Lotan, a 7-headed giant serpent who represented primeval chaos. As with many other biblical creatures, there are some less exciting theories that insist that the Leviathan is just a poetic depiction of a crocodile. Although last time I checked, crocodiles did not breathe fire or emit smoke from their nostrils.
Now, coming in at number 10 and number 9, we have Rakib and Atid. So this one counts as 2 entries. In Islamic tradition, the two Kiraman Katibin are two angels called Raqib and Atid, and they are the angels believed by Muslims to record a person's actions throughout their entire life. It's literally almost like they have video cameras rolling like the paparazzi all day, every day, no matter where you are. But whether a person is sent to Jannah, which is heaven, or Jahannam, which is hell, is not necessarily dependent on what their good deeds are and how the good deeds outweigh the bad deeds, but it's ultimately up to God's mercy upon a person. Moving on to number 8 and number 7, this is also a double entry. Munkar and Nakir. These names translate to the denied and the denier. And these angels, they're actually the ones that question a person when they lose their lives, and they're in the grave and their belief is questioned, and what they know about Prophet Muhammad is also questioned. So the soul of a deceased person will be in the grave in an upright position, placed like that by Munkar and Nakir, and that person is asked to identify who Prophet Muhammad is. Now, righteous people will acknowledge that he is the messenger of God, and that person will be allowed to rest in peace until the day of judgment. And these two angels, they also punish those in the grave who do not believe or were hypocrites and sinners while they were alive on earth. The next powerful angel to look at comes in at number 6, and this is Ridwan, also known as Rizwan or Ridvan. He is an archangel according to Islam, and he's known as the angel of paradise, so he guards the gates of heaven. In the tradition of Qisas al-Anbiya, Ridwan is given the task of preventing Iblis, the devil, from getting too close to Adam, but was tricked by a serpent who concealed Iblis in his mouth and carried him past him. Now in art, Ridwan is often portrayed as standing in the clouds of heaven or standing in a beautiful garden, which are both symbolic of paradise. All right, guys, halfway in at number 5, we have the angel Israfil. He's responsible for blowing the trumpet that will be the signal of the end of the earth. As a matter of fact, it would be the end of all creation. It's believed that Israfil will blow the trumpet from a holy rock in Jerusalem to announce the day of resurrection, also known as the day of judgment. And he's commonly thought of as the counterpart of the Judeo-Christian archangel named Raphael. And waiting to blow the trumpet is not Israfil's only task, but it is his most significant task. And unlike some of the other angels in this list, he's not mentioned in the Quran. Moving on to number 4, this powerful angel is Malik. Malik is an angel in hell and purgatory, and he administers hellfire, and he's assisted by 19 other subordinate angels. The Prophet Muhammad had met Angel Malik during his heavenly journey, so when Muhammad arrived in heaven and all the angels greeted him with smiles on their faces, the angel Malik didn't smile at all. So when Muhammad asked about this, why his face doesn't look so happy at all, another angel reveals that Malik is the guardian of hell, and because of that, he never ever smiles. Moving on now to number 3, we have the angel Azrael. The angel Azrael is the angel of death, and that is Malak al-Maut in Arabic. And he takes away the lives of people at God's command, swiftly, just like that. So yes, he's in charge of ending people's lives, and many other angels work under him, so he may not necessarily be the one that specifically takes everybody's life. And some angels under him take away the lives of good people, while others, who often appear in very frightful forms, take away the lives of sinners and disbelievers. Powerful angel at number 2 is Mikael, and he's referred to as Michael in Christianity. He's one of the archangels and is said to be responsible for the forces of nature. Mikael is often depicted as the archangel of mercy, so he's said to be very friendly, and he asks God for mercy for humans, and it is said that he was one of the first ones to bow down before Adam at God's command. He's responsible for the rewards given out to good people in this life, and he's believed to guard places of worship. Mikael is also credited as one of the angels that purified Prophet Muhammad's heart before his night journey or Isra from Mecca to Jerusalem and his later ascension or Miraj to heaven. Mikhail is also noted as helping the Muslims in their first significant military victory, which was the Battle of Badr in Arabia in the year 624. And finally, in at the number 1 spot, the angel Jibril. The angel Jibril is one of the main archangels and the angel of revelation who is assigned by God to reveal the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. And in biblical literature, Gabriel is a counterpart of Jibril. Jibril was also assigned to deliver the message to Mary that she would have a son, Jesus. And in the Hadith, it is mentioned that the angel Jibril accompanied Muhammad during Mi'raj, which was an ascension of the Prophet Muhammad into the heavens. Jibril in his true form has been described as having 600 wings, and each pair of wings is so big that they cover the entire sky. It is also believed that Angel Jibril descends to the earth on the night of Laylat al-Qadr, which is a night of fate, which is a night in the last 10 days of the holy month of Ramadan of the Islamic lunar calendar. This is said to be the night in which the Quran was first revealed.
All right, up at number 10, we have Ravana. Ravana was a powerful and evil demon king with 20 hands and 10 heads. He was considered the most dreadful creature of the universe, but was one of the very intellectual demons who mastered all the holy scripts of Hindu mythology. He perished at the hands of Rama for abducting Rama's wife, Sita, to marry her. When Lord Rama terminated Ravana, he was known as one of the longest living demons. Up next, we have Mahishasur. Mahishasur was a demon king who inherited a buffalo's body with the upper body of a human. He was a devotee of Lord Brahma and eventually got a blessing from him that no man would ever be able to kill him and that only a woman could kill him. Mahishasur was extremely powerful, and his pride led to his downfall. Believing that he would be immortal and that no woman would be able to match his strength, he started a great war. However, the prophecy was fulfilled when Mahishasur perished at the hands of a woman, Madurga, who fought him to stop the war he had created. All right, up next we have Hiranyakshipu. Hiranyakshipu was the egoistic demon king. He wanted his people to praise him as a god and considered himself to be the center of the world. He believed he was the creator of the universe with uncontrollable supreme power. While his entire kingdom worshipped him, his own son Prahlad refused to worship him as the Lord and instead was devoted to Lord Vishnu. Out of jealousy, Hiranyakshipu attempted many times to end the life of his son, but was unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Narsimha, or a form of Lord Vishnu, tore apart the demon Hiranyakshipu and destroyed him. Moving on to the story of Mahabali. Now, not every demon in Hindu mythology was completely evil. Mahabali is an example of one of the more generous demon kings. Everyone in his kingdom was happy under his rule, and he was completely devoted to the Lord. Once a Vamana came to his kingdom and asked the demon king to give him a piece of land just big enough to be covered by his footsteps. Now, secretly, it was Lord Vishnu disguised as Vamana. Generous as he was, Mahabali promised to fulfill the wish of Vamana. And upon hearing this promise, Vamana grew so big that one of his footsteps covered the entire world, and Mahabali came to know that Vamana was really Lord Vishnu. To seek blessings from the Lord, Mahabali asked Vamana to put the next footprint on his forehead. But of course, as a result of receiving the Lord's giant footstep on his forehead, Mahabali perished. Up at number 6, we have the story of Raktabija. Raktabija was one of the strongest demons who had a very unique blessing that if even one drop of his blood fell on the ground, from that same drop, a duplicate of him would be born. This meant that it was very difficult to defeat or terminate Raktabija, so no one dared to challenge him. Every time Raktabija's duplicate was formed, his power would increase. Now, in a battle with the goddess Durga, Raktabija's blood spilled to the ground and thousands of Raktabija were born. Eventually, the Hindu goddess Kali came forward and pierced the demon, making sure to drink every drop of blood that spilled before it could ever hit the ground and, in essence, terminating him. Now, up at the halfway point in today's video at number 5, we have Narakasura. Narakasura was a demon king ruler disliked by his people because he tortured them. He had once kidnapped around 1,600 women only to torment them for his own pleasure. Soon his people could no longer take the torture and collectively approached the supreme being Krishna for help. Krishna promised that he would fight and terminate the demon king on their behalf. However, Narakasura's life could only end at the hands of a woman. So Krishna and his wife fought the battle against Narakasura, emerging victoriously and destroying Narakasura. And now we come to the story of Kumbhakaran. Hindu demon Kumbhakarna, or the sleeping giant, had an enormous body and was blessed with the ability to sleep for months. But once asleep, waking him was considered tremendously difficult. His brother Ravana, who was also a powerful demon, had kidnapped Rama's wife to marry her. When war broke out between the two, Ravana needed his brother's help to win the war. To wake him from a deep sleep, Ravana had 1,000 elephants walk over Kumbhakaran, waking him in time for battle. Now, Kumbhakaran knew that his brother was doing wrong, and for that, he tried to convince him to stop, but Ravana would not listen. Out of loyalty, Kumbhakaran fought against Rama for his brother. He destroyed most of Rama's army in the battle, but eventually perished at the hands of Rama. Up next at number 3, we have the story of Tarakasura. Tarakasura was an evil demon king who defeated his challengers and forced them to become his servants. He praised the gods and eventually received their blessings. However, he began to misuse his power and many innocent perished at his hands. As per his blessing from the gods, Tarakasura could only be defeated by the son of Lord Shiva, but at the time, Shiva had no children. However, after Shiva's marriage to Parvati, Kartikeya was born. Kartikeya then fought Tarakasura and destroyed him and all of his brothers. Moving on to the story of Surpanaka. Surpanaka was a wicked demoness and the sister of the demon king Ravana. She was considered very ugly and married to Dushtabudi. Dushtabudi was terribly greedy and wanted Ravana's kingdom. When Ravana heard about his intentions, he destroyed Dushtabudi, leaving Surpanaka a widow. A few years later, she saw Lakshmana and Rama roaming around the forest. She was attracted to them and of course wanted to marry them. However, both of them declined her proposal and she became angry. To try and win their love, she attempted to attack Sita, the wife of Rama, and the sister-in-law of Lakshmana. Because of this, Lakshmana chopped off her nose and Rama declared a battle against her. In the end, Rama emerged victoriously and Surpanaka left alone and in tears. And up at number 1, perhaps one of the most evil demons that I found was Putna. Lord Krishna appeared as a supreme personality on earth to destroy all the demons and protect his devotees. Putna was the demoness who practiced the art of taking the lives of infants through black magic. One day, Putna dressed herself as a beautiful girl and entered the infant Krishna's house to end his life. When Putna entered the room, she took Krishna onto her lap. The wicked demoness had smeared poison on her nipple and pushed it into his mouth, expecting him to die as she fed him. However, her plan failed, and instead, the infant Krishna sucked the life out of her. Eventually, the demoness returned to her normal form and perished, screaming in pain as her body extended up to 12 miles, crashing into trees and the village houses.